but you have no idea who's had it since. This way we can start proving things out on chain. Also, it allows people to maybe manage inventory better, where you can tokenize the inventory. So there's a bunch of different things that I think are really interesting for all industries that Devin is doing that I want to see succeed.
You mentioned the different people involved in the kind of like wine supply chain. Obviously, we're the kind of end consumer, and you said we're incentivized to drink, so some sort. So there's actually a NFC there. Do you have your phone?
I do. I have my Devin app as well.
So there's an NFC there, and you can basically claim your tokens for drinking this wine. I opened the bottle before through my app, and you should be able to just tap the NFC and then claim your...
My app. But yes, I just tap it and then it claims it.
Yeah, I think you can also just tap the phone and then you can have...
Let's see. Yeah, there we go. Straight into my app. We haven't got very good internet. But yes, it'll load up. It then knows that we've opened...
Because of the leverage of crypto, right? And so a year and a half later, I just thought at bottom of the bear market, after FTX crash, I was thinking that that's the moment to start to do something similar. So there is definitely a big influence from Steven and from Lex, as you could see.
I was invited for the Lex Fridman podcast over the pandemic, and I couldn't leave the Cayman Islands. And that's before Lex really blew up, but he was starting to get big. And he's like, well, I only do it in person. I'm like, well, I can't get to Austin. He's like, well, can't do it then. And then I wrote to him recently. He said, look, I'm happy to come now. Never heard back.
I mean, if you grow it's all a social proof game, right?
Yeah.
If you grow the socials, which are starting to do really well, especially on the YouTube side, right? I mean, Twitter is huge already, but on the YouTube side, then you might get back on his radar, especially if you go on Steven and then start to see...
Yeah, because Steven obviously is a Real Vision fan, but he'd also seen me on Tom Bilyeu.
Absolutely.
And,
that's what I was thinking, right? And it always takes a bit longer until almost everybody abandons, and then boom, it goes up so quickly that people who were not in kind of miss the boat. Feels like it's kind of similar this time around again.
The market likes to exhibit pain. And it's when people get bored or people lose focus or people think, oh, I'm going to go and find something else, is when it all goes off. It always happens this way. And 2020 was like that. Last year was like that. People forget last year was almost identical. In fact, when you overlay the charts of Ethereum now versus Ethereum then, Bitcoin now versus Bitcoin then, last year, it was identical. So it should just continue higher. Now, it's correcting today, but this is short-term noise, but generally it should keep going up. And everything in macro says it should keep going up. So let's see.
I had a conversation with Kiao Wang from Alliance DAO a couple of weeks ago in New York. And he said that the so-called alt season, banana zone, is kind of the same, right?
I think that's reasonable. And I get that really simply, again, in an idiot's way. I just take the market cap of crypto, put it in a log regression channel, and it gets you there. You do the same with Bitcoin, back it out as maybe a Bitcoin dominance of 50%, 40%. You kind of get there. It's like, you look at the wallet growth, you kind of get to those numbers. So it's like, yeah, that makes about sense.
So we are today at 2.2 trillion, which means 5 to 7x in growth.
Yeah.
If that really happens, what does it mean for BTC, ETH, and Sol?
Generally speaking, in a normal market, you would see Sol outperform, ETH outperform Bitcoin. That's usually what happens. And so I don't know, because I don't want to give price targets, because, you get in that stupid game of people then believe the price targets and then it doesn't happen. And then their vision of their future selves, that Porsche they were going to buy is now ruined and it's my fault because it didn't get to the price. It's all nonsense. But you could probably say that Bitcoin, the Harris administration gets in and they crack even further down on crypto, and that slows progress further. And then something else happens negative and it just slows it down. Maybe liquidity doesn't come in, and for some reason we manage to finance the debts because GDP growth is high enough. And so suddenly we get less liquidity than we expected. It doesn't seem to be the case because of China. It's so big and it has such a problem. And Europe is slowing down very fast. So I don't see it, but there's always a probability. So you just have to assess it as you go, because certainly within all of the predictions that I have, many of them don't come to pass. The idea is that overall it comes to pass. So do we get a banana zone now, later? I mean, we talked about this last time. I said, I don't know, but it will come at some point. If it doesn't come, is the space going to collapse? No, you need liquidity to tighten for that to happen. So in which case, it's a holding pattern or a slower grind higher. Okay, I can live with that. A collapse of the market based around liquidity suddenly going up, okay, that's a whole different risk, because then you're wrong.
And your eyes, right? And you're like, oh man, like...
And look, SUI is hard to understand at first. When I started, I'm like, look, we know they're all smart people, but they're just technical. And at the time, they hadn't developed the character of like these 5 superheroes, because each of the 5 founders is very different. And what we're finding is different people are different communicators to different markets. And Adani is more crypto native, a bit more degen, a bit more understanding. I think Sam is like the young surfer dude, the CTO. And so he plays well. Evan is like the older wizard that nobody quite understands what he's talking about. Everyone plays a different role within it. So it takes a while for people to grasp what's going on. But I got it. As you know, I like to extrapolate everything down to its lowest common denominator, a meme, the left curve, right curve. And basically, we have the people. And so if we don't allocate capital correctly, or we don't communicate message correctly, then it's our fault.
Yeah, something for people to kind of keep in mind is extremely risky play, probably going to go up a lot, outperform Sol if markets go up like crazy. But what happened to Sol last cycle? What happened to ETH previous cycle? Down 97% and still survived. But that's when you get
that is the signal
to test, right?
That's the signal that's been de-risked. Yeah. And that's why Sol suddenly became a de-risked asset, because it got down to $8. Everyone was, it's terrible. Activity was still high. They started launching Bonk and other stuff. And before you know it, it's going up and outperforming. And that's like, okay, Lindy effect. This is proven not to die.
Absolutely. So something that people who are a bit maybe risk averse could do.
Internationally recognizable brand. There is a chance, a reasonable chance, that Elon Musk builds a stupid department in the US government, which is the Department of Government Efficiency, which he calls Doge. I mean, he puts the meme with the fucking dog. And obviously, he's building a payments platform. He's getting the money transmitter licenses. What's standing in his way of using Doge as an international payments, which would be very useful, because then I can sell something to somebody in Nigeria and we don't need dollars or anything else? Doge. Change of government? I wouldn't be surprised if Doge does not explode. So it's a lower risk way of playing the meme coin cycle. So, I've got a balanced portfolio of one risky one and one less risky one.
Doge is your soul.
What's more absurd is they registered as a church in Texas. So it is the church of the smoking chicken fish. And then what you see is the cult-like behavior. Because it's funny, the memes get funnier. So they rename this thing, as opposed to being one specific religion that is used in any religious stuff. So as opposed to be Lord Vishnu, which is the Hindu god, it becomes Lord Fishnu. And as opposed to praise be to God, it becomes praise be to Cod. And so it goes on. And it's just funny. It's like Monty Python of memes, and it's religion. So actually there's a bit of a left curve, right curve part. What they're trying to do is become the largest registered church in the United States by number of attendees and also by money.
For all of these weird things, right?